Hi, folks. It's good to see you again. If we're not already acquainted, my name is Sasan Kasravi. This is Proteus Debate Academy. We make high quality resources for debaters and their coaches. And I wanted to make a series of hopefully pretty short. I'm aiming for 15 minutes tops. Series of videos for coaches, whether they're new coaches or they've been doing this a while, about advice and just my philosophy and approach to coaching. So, without hopefully taking too long to go into this, a little bit about my background as a coach. I coached for 8, 9, 10 years at Diablo Valley College. When I joined initially as a competitor, it was a really small team without really any accolades or major successes. I stuck around as like a peer coach, and then eventually got paid a stipend to help out a little bit. Started running the debate program by myself, and the program eventually grew to the top community college debate program in the country. And I also coached for 3 different debate academies, the top 3 debate academies in California, and at least I don't know. I think that they call themselves the top 3. I'm not here to rank them. But yeah, so at these academies, parents pay a bunch of money for their kids to join, get private coaching after school, and then when they go compete, they compete as a part of this academy, not a part of their own school, which is why most of those programs are focused on middle school, because most high school tournaments don't allow people to compete as an academy. So I coached some high school still, but I coached a lot of middle schoolers and a bunch of elementary schoolers through that. And I now live in New York City, where I work for a nonprofit called the Brooklyn Debate League. So what the Brooklyn Debate League does is we work with high schools who want to have debate programs and have a teacher who's interested in becoming a debate coach, and we help them build their program, and we teach the kids the basics of debate, but we're mostly mentoring the coaches in becoming effective debate coaches. So a lot of what I do as the director of curriculum at Brooklyn Debate League is decide how we teach the kids, like how they get taught, but a lot of coaches. And so I have a lot to say about approaches to coaching in debate. I have 7 or 8 of these already picked out topic wise. We're going to start with the first one. That is the Van test. What it is and why it matters. So, what is the Van test? The Van test is a measure of whether I, Sasan Kasravi, want you to be in the rental van that we are taking from Diablo Valley College down to some tournament in Southern California for a 7-8 hour drive. And if I don't want you in that van, you don't pass the van test. So it's more of a measure of what you're like to be around. Are you really annoying? That's rarely actually the problem. Uh, and it's partly because most debaters are annoying. They're annoying. It attracts an annoying group of people, which, I'm sure I'm also guilty of. But it mainly is just whether you are a bummer to be around, whether you start shit with people, whether you are just generally unpleasant and bring down the vibes. So why does that matter? Well, it matters because ultimately each member of your debate team has a more significant contribution to the team socially than they do competitively. This is true of every format of debate at nearly every level. I would say the only level of debate where this is not the case is where your roster of students are all on scholarship. And that muddies the water a little bit, and it also gives students an incentive to be on the team and compete and do their best even when they're having a miserable time. But I never had students on a scholarship, and so I never wanted my students to be miserable. And the Van test is how we account for that. Why? Bad vibes kill teams. It stops engagement from building that year. It stops people from wanting to come back. And even the best case scenario with a student who has terrible vibes, and they go on to win something, right? One, it's rare that a student without the massive enthusiasm and support of their teammates and coaches can win, say, a national championship or a state championship or whatever your sort of capstone goals are. We'll talk about that in a later video. So it's rare that they're even able to do that. But even if they could, that's a one-year accomplishment, and then the team dies. And I've seen a lot of teams die at the high school level especially, and just bad vibes are a major, major part of it. And it's really hard to recover from that once you've established this as just an unpleasant place to be. Even from a competitive standpoint, right? We would take students to state championships and national championships. So at the DVC team, right, on a good year, we'd have 55 students. That was the maximum that we could fit in the class, which for a college team is enormous. And the state championship we'd go to has a cap of how many students you can take. They don't have to qualify, but each team can only bring so many students. And that cap is 21 students. And we would have years where there were students who had really shitty attitudes and were unpleasant to be around, were rude to their partners, were rude to their opponents, were just killing the vibe and making the environment worse. But they were, relatively good competitors. Maybe they would have gotten a silver or even a gold at our state championship, right? But the fact of the matter is that 2 bronzes, which in community college debate, just breaking in nationals or state gets you a bronze. It's the equivalent to being a semifinalist, or I guess a quarterfinalist, but they don't have enough people to field quarterfinals. But a quarterfinalist. Even if our goal is to maximize the number of points that our school scores at that tournament, a bronze at these tournaments is worth 5 points, a gold is worth 10 points, but there's reasons why they're not equivalent. 2 bronzes means your opponents had fewer people. There's fewer slots that they could fill. So even if your 2 students that took bronzes didn't go on to get golds, there's fewer points for other people to get. And it just pays dividend. It's just more names you can list on a newsletter letter at the end of the year that look how many students we served, look how well they did. Generally speaking, a large number of students doing well is worth more than 1 or 2 students doing excellent. So when do you have to make these decisions about whether or not to include this person? You got to start doing it early. The first reason why is because you want to give these people a chance to correct that behavior. But also, you want to build engagement and enthusiasm at each of these moments throughout your season so that you can have a great team, so that you could have a team that is really engaged, really doing their best. And the first opportunity that comes up is any travel opportunities. This is a classic mistake, and honestly, a discussion that we have to have every travel tournament at the BDL with the coaches of the schools we work with, and even with the other members of the BDL, because they will want to maximize the number of students who get the opportunity to go to a travel tournament. I 100% understand that. But two things can happen at a travel tournament. You can have scenario A, where students go and for the first time, they're surrounded by people who are all actually really into debate. And they're not just like looking to go off somewhere else and do something else. They actually just want to talk about debate, and they get to try out being a debate nerd and just talking about debate rounds and doing research together and doing work together. And that enthusiasm is it builds on itself, right? But one thing teenagers and older are really good at, but teenagers are the worst at this, right? You ask a room full of teenagers, which I do all the time, hey, somebody, what's your favorite TV show? No one will say anything. And you're like, hey, what's a TV show you like? No one will say anything. And it doesn't have to be a TV show. It can be a video game. It can be music. You're like, what is a TV show you have heard of ever before in your life? Because I just need to give some example. And then somebody will finally raise their hand, and they'll be like, The Walking Dead. And someone else in the back will be like, that show sucks. And that is just how awful and terrible people are at this stage of their lives, where none of them are willing to put out something that could get criticized. And the only way they know how to like climb this social hierarchy is by trying to stuff other people beneath them, right? And it's all of that is to say that it takes one person to kill a vibe, to like make everyone else self-conscious for being really nerdy and excited about this, or make everybody else self-conscious about trying really hard, right? You want to remove that and create scenario A, because scenario B is you go and somebody has a shitty attitude on the trip up there, and they're in a fight, and I don't want to be roommates with this person, and actually I want to be in this room, and they're like wandering off in the streets of Philadelphia, and you have to be like, hey, you can't do that. And they're like, I walk around New York all the time. And it's like, right, but when you do that, I don't go to prison as a result. And you just have to like spend your so much more energy managing someone who doesn't want to be there, or frankly doesn't deserve to be there. And that pulls away from time that you could be spending on having fun and building a great relationship with your students. The other times after that, right? Any travel opportunity, but you also want to like set expectations, right? We tell kids, like, if we don't think you're good enough like socially for this environment, you don't deserve to go. So there's some sort of like state championship tournament or something coming up, or like a milestone tournament. I'll explain the difference between milestone and capstone tournaments when we get into the video on goal setting. But a milestone tournament is one that is on your path to whatever your like big measure for success or failure is at the end, right? But like for example, at DVC, we would go to Southern California for a big tournament right before the state championships, and that would tell us like, how are our kids doing? What are the events that need extra work? Where should we be putting our focus in the like 3 weeks we have left before the state championship tournament? And I don't want to bring somebody to that if I'm not going to bring them to the state championship. So state championship, other big things, right? Another example where this matters is showcases. Now, a showcase can be like what we did at DVC, which is we would rent out the theater, and we would hold an event, and we would charge mostly students in public speaking classes tickets to go, but they would all get extra credit for their classes because all their teachers agreed to do that. So they would get extra credit. They have to go watch this showcase. We showcase. 4 or 5 speeches and do a showcase debate that's like smaller, a little bit more entertaining at the end. And it's basically a way of us highlighting our students, but also it's a major part of our recruitment effort. A separate video on recruitment stuff coming up also. And when it comes to like who do we showcase, that is a reward, and it's not your reward for how well you did at a tournament. Your trophy is the reward for how well you did at the tournament. It's your reward for things that we want to reward. So we want to reward hard work, absolutely. But there's also people who are the heart and soul of the team who maybe just were less experienced, or I don't know, just didn't reach that competitive level, right? These are the people who are constantly rooting on their teammates. These are the people who bring snacks for everybody else. These are the people who organize events and hangs for the students outside of school, or give people feedback on their speeches, or run debate rounds when they don't need it, or they're not even in that format of debate, or somebody needs practice, right? Like, these kids have Van Test for days, and we will always reward these kids because we want them to set a social precedent, right? We want to, who you get on the team is out of your control to some degree, right? But what behavior you reward on the team is, it's gardening, is nurturing that team, and it's a big part of it. So that's really important, because when somebody is on a debate team, right, the way they develop engagement, like how they interact with the team, is first and foremost a social experience. Nobody joins the debate team and it's the most important thing in their lives that day. Maybe a couple kids, I don't know. But that's not, as a coach, that's not what you are trying to work around and build on, right? The first engagement someone has with your team is this a social space that I want to be in? And that's what makes a debate team a really powerful thing, because it can be an incredible social environment where people hang out and talk about really interesting things. It attracts people who care about interesting things and are able to talk about them, right? At DVC especially, we're a commuter school. Nobody lives on campus. So everybody just drives home to their like families. It gives them a space on campus to want to hang out. Now, a secondary part of that is you want the hangout to also involve like work. When I was on my team, we'd do practice on campus and whatever. And these are college kids. We were in our like early 20s. So we would hang out and do some practice or whatever. But when practice time was over, me, Paul, my coach, and a handful of other students, we'd go to the diner across the street, and we'd just like sit and eat some food and keep talking about, TV, movies, politics, but also debate. And after that is where you start to get people who are engaged with the challenge. And after all of that is the part where they actually get to reap the rewards of, here's the academic achievements that I made and what I get to put on my resume. And eventually it all becomes a great memory, either like emotionally. I know a lot of people, my debate mentor who I'd go to that diner with died years ago. And I went to his mom's 80th birthday party. I flew across the country to go, and I wasn't the only debate person there. One of his old debate partners was there. A bunch of debate people were there, and it creates a social environment that sticks with you, and it creates positive memories that inform who you are for a really long time. And that's actually a really important part of you as a debate coach, because that is something you can give every debate student, right? It doesn't matter what their competitive, like what their academic propensity for success. I don't actually think debate is that like academically hard with good coaching, but with that having been said, right, it doesn't matter if they win rounds or not, if they have a great experience, and you can give them that, but not if you're poisoning the well with students who shouldn't be in that environment. And of course, another aspect of the memory thing is the actual like portable skills and the like world knowledge and whatever, like all of that stuff that are the reasons why we think we want debate teams are contingent on the first layer of students interacting with the team, which is as a social experience. So what does that mean? Just to wrap up this video that already went a little bit too long, but I had to do an intro in the beginning. You forgive me. What that means is if you create a space that people want to be in, and you make it so that the people who are in that space want to do debate, the rest will literally take care of itself. If nothing else, there is Proteus Debate Academy, and they can look up what a counterplan is, or how to read a speed critique, or whether fiat is illusory and what that means. You, as a coach, don't have to know any of that. What you have to do is create a good social environment, be a great source of emotional support, and a little bit down the line, be an effective source of feedback and putting the students' focus on the right thing, which is, I think, the next video that I'm making on this. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts you want to share, let us know. I'm excited to make more of these, and I haven't made a little video in a while. It's because I've been working on some really big ones that have just taken a lot of time. They've gotten big in scope. But those will eventually come out too. All right. Wishing you all the best. See you in the next one.